and welcome to my three-part review series on the Lee Enfield No.1 Mk.III rifle, also known as the SMLE, Short Magazine Lee Enfield. This will be part 1 of 3, and just like all my other three-part review series, part 1 will cover the basics, loading, unloading, firing, bolt maintenance, that kind of thing. Part 2 will cover accessories as well as ammunition. And part 3, last but not least, will take care of the history of this magnificent weapon. So thank you for stopping by, and go ahead and watch whichever part is most applicable to you. The SMLE family of rifles, also known as the No.1 series, entered British military service in 1903, the results of lessons learned during the Boer War. During that war, the infantry fought using a long rifle, and the cavalry with a carbine. Both branches complained about deficiencies with their service arms, and as a result, the British went over to the concept of an intermediate-length rifle. One rifle of intermediate length for everybody's needs. In 1907, the Mk.III pattern was introduced, which is what you see here. And that stayed in production and the primary combat rifle of the British military until just after the Battle of Dunkirk, when they replaced the SMLE with the No.4 series of Lee Enfield rifles. The Canadians also replaced the SMLE with the No.4 during that time. However, in Indian, Australian, and New Zealander service, the SMLE stayed as the primary combat rifle until the adoption of the FNFAL by all those countries. In India, remarkably after their independence, they continued to produce the SMLE, but chambered in the 7.62 by 51 mm NATO caliber, and they continued producing those into the 70s. Before working the action on any rifle, you should always make sure that it's unloaded and pointed in a safe direction. To check to see if the rifle is unloaded on the Lee Enfield, just simply, like most other bolt actions, lift the bolt and retract it to the rear. Inspect the magazine, which is empty, and the chamber, which is empty. I use the pinky check just because it works under any light condition, and also because it was just the way I was taught. Most people get by just fine on a visual check. Now, by doing that, you've already learned to work the action halfway. The other half involves closing the bolt and cocking the rifle. The Lee Enfield has what's called a cock-on-close action, which means that the firing pin spring is compressed on the closing action of the bolts, which is right here. You can feel it. Whoops, and as you can see, it drives it back. And then rotating the bolt down, rotates the bolt into the firing position and locks the locking lugs in place, ready to absorb the pressure from the detonating cartridge. One of the things that you want to pay attention to when you operate the Lee Enfield is the status of the cocking piece. The cocking piece is the rear portion of the bolt here that protrudes backwards when the weapon is cocked, as you can see there. It's a visual and physical indicator that the weapon is cocked and will fire, assuming the safety has been disengaged, like such. Of course, you can use the cocking piece to recock the weapon, which is 2 clicks, back to full cock. And in the event that, for example, you have a round that won't go off and you want to give it a second strike without opening the bolts. Now, to decock the rifle, and you never want to decock the rifle with a round in the chamber, you can do so by one of 2 ways. The first is to simply hold the cocking piece, pull on the trigger, and ease it forward. The second way would be to open the bolts, and then right as you're about to get to this position here where you normally compress the spring, hold the trigger down and then push it in and down, uncocking the weapon. The Lee Enfield does have a half-cock feature, which is just 1 click. That basically freezes up the entire rifle and locks everything. You can't pull the trigger, you can't open the bolts, and the safety won't work either. To restore function to the rifle, you have to pull it back to full cock, and then from there you can go about your business. In the previous segment, I mentioned the safety of the Lee Enfield. The safety on any Lee Enfield is right here. It's the lever that rocks backwards and forwards. In the forwards position, the safety is off. You can obviously perform all the combat functions of the rifle. You can cock it and decock it and do everything you need to. In the rear position, it locks everything in place. You can't cock it, you can't cycle the bolts, and if the weapon were cocked, you'd obviously not be able to pull the trigger or cycle the bolts. Of course, it is just a mechanical device. You should never rely on the safety because it can fail, just like any other mechanical device out there. Now that you know how to work the bolt on the Lee Enfield, I suppose it's time that I teach you how to take it out of the rifle and disassemble it for cleaning. To take the bolt out of the Lee Enfield, it's pretty simple. Just lift the bolt, retract it to the rear, and then you're going to see this fat portion of the bolt head right here. On the SMLE, just pull it up, whoops, and then into the upright position, and then just pull it out. It's right there. Now I'm going to move the camera just to show you how to take this apart because it's a bit awkward from this position, and show you where you need to clean. Now that you have your bolt out of the rifle, disassembling the bolt is really easy. Just take this and just basically unscrew it. You want to turn counterclockwise. It'll just come out. And there you go. Just wipe off the bolt head, clean it, the firing pin if you see any residue on it, the bolt body. To take it down further from here requires a special armorer's tool. It's a long thing with 2 teeth cut into it, 2 cutouts, and you stick it in there, and you'd have to unscrew this screw here, and then you twist it, and the entire thing comes apart. But I suspect this is as far as a soldier would have taken it, because this is really as far as it goes without specialized tools. So give everything a nice cleaning, and then to put it back in, just do the reverse. Just screw it back in clockwise. Now to fit it back into the rifle, you're going to take this bolt head as far as it goes, and then you're going to want to align it with this long lug here that also doubles as a guide rail. Line it up, and then you're going to want to fit that into this portion here, the split bridge portion of the Lee Enfield. Push it forward. Oh, there we go. Now take the bolt head section here and just push it back down until it clips back into the rail. Like that. And then you're good from there. There you go. The Lee Enfield rifle can be loaded a couple different ways. Although the rifle does feature a 10-round detachable box magazine, which is released by pushing it on this lever on the inside of the trigger guard, you are normally not supposed to take out the magazine, with the exception of cleaning and maintenance and the like. Rather, the British military-approved way to load the Lee Enfield was through the top. And of course you can do this by either loose round, or what's called a stripper clip, or charger clip, I've heard the Brits say. Either term is acceptable. It's just a piece of metal that holds your rounds so that you can insert them all as one unit into the stripper clip guide. So there's 2 notches on here that will catch on the guide. And then you just thumb your rounds in. Now, it's very important to note with the British .303 cartridge and its clip, the .303 is a rimmed round, which means that you can get what's called rim lock, where the round that's trying to be chambered is obstructed by the rim of the round underneath it, and you won't be able to chamber the round. That's obviously a jam, and that can get you killed on the battlefield. So the British military trained their soldiers to stack their rounds a certain way. The 1st, 3rd, and 5th rounds have the rims stacked behind the 2nd and the 4th rounds, as you can see there. Now when I load my clips, I find it easiest to take the clip, look at it from the rear, because there's these holes here, and just insert your rounds like such. And then you can use those holes to see where those rims are. Excuse me, this is a bit awkward from behind the camera. Just insert another one behind. The next one will go over. It does require a bit of finagling when you first start. And then that should be behind. Yep. Alright, so now what you do is you take your rounds, your clip, you insert them into the stripper clip guide or the stripper clip notch. Now, unlike the Mauser, which you can just take your rounds, press down, and it'll glide in like silk, the British .303 charger requires a bit more force. What I find is that I have to take my thumb, hook it over like this, and then press down. And right when you get to here, when you bottom out at the bottom of the thumb cutout here, what I do is I just shift my thumb over and finish it off like that. Take out the first clip. I found a manual from the First World War from 1915 that says you're only supposed to have 5 rounds in the magazine to save the magazine from excessive spring wear, but also so that you have the ability to just open the bolt and then charge it with a second clip at any time. Of course, I'm guessing most soldiers just loaded it with 10 anyways. Now the second clip does take a bit more force, and this is usually where people encounter problems. And then shift your thumb over, and then from here you can just shove the bolt home and your round will go in. And the clip, of course, will get kicked out. So there you go. There is a second way to stack the rims inside the clip such that they'll feed a bit smoother into the Lee Enfield. This was brought to my attention by a good friend of mine, Jerry Essen. His YouTube name is Taz101 Saga, so thank you, Jerry. On the left is the military method that I just showed you with the alternating rims. But the way that Jerry showed me is similar to that of the Mosey Nagant, actually. It only feeds one way because it's what's called a staircase pattern, where the rim of this round is ahead of this one, is ahead of this one, and so on and so forth. Now, I just figured out which way to load it by my experience with the Mosey Nagant, but Jerry showed me that the bottom round, if aligned properly, when the clip is aligned properly, exhibits an upward slant with the slants of the bottom of the magazine there. So that's how you know it goes in this way. So I'm going to try this myself. Allow me to reposition myself, and we'll see. And let me see, make sure both clips are aligned properly. Yep. And here we go. Wow, that was actually pretty quick. Thank you, Jerry, and I hope everyone else found that useful. There are two different ways to unload the Lee Enfield. The first, and perhaps the most obvious, is just to cycle the bolts until no further rounds remain in the magazine. Obviously, with 10 rounds, this might get a bit tedious. So the second way, and of course you want to make sure that your bolt is always open and safe and the rifle is pointed in the safe direction, is to take the magazine out by, as I mentioned earlier, pushing it on this release lever here that pulls out the, that releases the magazine. And from there, you can just strip out the rounds one by one. Whoops. Mine has a tendency to pop out two at a time if you do things from a certain angle. And there's your last round. So there you go. To reinsert the magazine, just take it, just rock it back into the rifle. Like that. And you're good to go.
Nervous.
All right.
I don't want it to blow up my face.
First shots with the Enfield, Chuck's last rifle in this World War II collection.
I wonder if it'll hang fire. This is old packy stuff.
Nice.
Wow, that was a hang fire. Maybe like a third of a second. Click, bang.
Yep.
10 rounds. Seeing how fast I can go.
While still being remotely near the target.
Yeah. Not as easy to charger load as the Mauser. Still not bad. It's shooting way high.
Aim about a foot lower.
Did you hear that hang fire?
Yeah.
Another crazy hang fire.
That was way off.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I'd attribute that one to the ammo, not to you, because that was really far.
Let's make this quick. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
I'm purposely aiming like 3 feet low because I know when it clicks it's gonna go up and then shoot.
Yeah, we've been experiencing some hang fires, as Chuck's been saying earlier, but those last 5 rounds of each shot have been bad. I mean, I had one, I don't know, did you have that on camera?
What? Yeah, I had that on camera.
All right, it was like almost a full third of a second between the click and the boom, so we're just having fun with this old Enfield right here.